Thank you for joining us for today's Feature Friday segment. Today we have Thomas Mckune, who is a Growing Forward strategy champion. Thomas, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good, thank you. Can you just give us a brief introduction of who you are and an overview of your career and your current role?
Okay, so as you've already introduced me, I'm Thomas Mckune. I'm better known as Tom to both my colleagues at SASI and work and my friends. I've just recently retired as a full-time academic at the age of 65, having been involved in teaching for almost 30 years. I am still teaching. I've stayed on a contract basis. At least I don't have the responsibilities of being the HOD anymore, so it's just full-time teaching. I started my career in 1973 in civil engineering, actually as a draftsman is where I started at the then NPA Roads Department, and I went through and qualified and did other courses and eventually became the control technician in the geometrics section, where I was responsible for training both professional engineers, candidate engineers, and for training technicians and technologists to become geometric designers or to achieve their professional status. And obviously I was involved in doing design work myself and then managing and supervising consulting engineers. I was there until the end of July 1990, so I was 17 years at the Department of Transport. And then I had started doing some part-time lecturing at the beginning of 1990 for, in those days, Technikon Natal, only in the geometrics area. And I was sort of approached and said, wouldn't you like to become a full-time academic? And if I found the guy that recruited me, I'd probably kill him now, because what he told me the job entailed is a hell of a lot less complicated than it actually turned out to be. But needless to say, I spent the nearly 30 years of my working life as an academic, started as a senior lecturer, progressed up to where I became senior director, and obviously I was the HOD of civil engineering originally in Durban. And then with the merger of Technikon Natal and ML Sultan, we became the DIT, and then probably 12, 14 years ago, the DUT, or Durban University of Technology. And at merger, I had the opportunity to come back to Maritzburg. I was HOD in Durban. And because I live in Maritzburg and I'd been commuting, that was like a good opportunity for me. So I took it, and what I've done in Maritzburg is take a department from about 70 students to, in the beginning of this year, 1,200 students doing civil engineering from all levels, both an access program right up to doctorate in engineering. Having retired now, I'm obviously just teaching, but perhaps my reason for being involved in the SASI Growing It Forward is I've chaired the SASI E&T panel probably for the last 20 years. And as such, obviously, I'm very involved in both curricular matters and dealing with both the UOTs, which is where I work, and with the traditional universities, in that we have a regular annual meeting of the heads. I think the traditional universities one was at UP this year, University of Pretoria, in March, and we are due to go and have the UOT one end of October at CUT. So Stephen was looking for somebody to be the champion for the sister university pillar. And since he had no volunteers, academics always tend to say they are far too busy involved in their research and whatnot. He asked if I would step in and caretake the portfolio, which I said I would do. I am just the caretaker. It would be nice to get some nice, young, energetic academic blood on board to be able to engage with the universities. As far as what we can do, obviously the objective of Growing Forward is to bring SASI directly to our future members, which are students. The way we do that is through the lecturing staff. Surprisingly, I know in my own university, every one of my staff, even a mathematics lecturer, are members of SASI. We make it a compulsory, if you want to, you can, if you don't want to, you have to, type of volunteerism. But then the department pays their membership fees, so it's not a cost to them. And some are more engaged than others. You know, the Oliver Rose and a few of the others are far more engaged than some of the staff. They are just happy to be members. But what we find with the universities is they obviously would like to use SASI's network facilities. We are in the late stages of just finalizing a publication, which was Sundra Naka, president of 3 or 4 years ago, Ambition, which is a guide of best practice for laboratory work. We've supplemented it with some annexes, which is sort of procedure manuals for the use of universities. And it's that kind of a publication where we can assist the universities with giving them materials, giving them resources. There's another initiative that we are doing under the Assist the University, and that's we've got working groups together that are working on developing textbooks at this stage aimed at UOT students primarily. The cost of textbooks is quite prohibitive, and SAICI having its own A, bookshop, and B, being the ability to publish, we've got authors that are willing to put in the sweat equity and then get royalties on the sales. The benefit is that we can buy the books directly from SAICI because they can be sole supplier. It makes it easier for universities to purchase in bulk. And then obviously we've got the magazine and the journal pipelines for where academics can get income, both in terms of subsidy, but also get exposure. I know that the other pillars of the Growing Forward are all working on various initiatives, and obviously as chair of ENT, I'm involved in multiple of them. The Assist the Student, the candidates, which Duncan, my son, is working on, are all interlinked in my view. I don't believe any pillar stands on its own. Yeah. The one thing we've not had a chance to do yet that we were requested to do is to undertake a survey of industry, because universities are becoming under increasing pressure to be recruiting South Africans, preferably Black South Africans, into the universities as academics. The minimum requirement to be an academic is a master's degree. In fact, even at most traditional universities, they'd like a PhD degree. But the reality is that those resources are far and few between. Anybody in industry who's got a PhD is normally not prepared to come to a university and earn what university professors get paid. So what we were asked to do by the universities is to almost do a numbers and needs analysis like Alison has done, but of the postgraduate qualified profile of the country. So what South Africans, and obviously Black female South Africans preferably, have got PhDs that are in industry, and then we can go back to the universities and say, look, you're putting us under immense pressure here as university HODs to recruit Black South Africans, but unless you make your salaries more competitive, etc., 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 it's not going to happen. So SAICI can play a facilitation role in assisting universities in that sense. So why should people join this little working committee? Obviously, the ideal is you must either have an interest in academics, and if so, you can get involved in the day-to-day affairs of SAICI, and obviously there is a lot of things happening in SAICI that are mutually beneficial to our profession. And I think, to sum it up, doing together what is much more difficult than doing on your own is the whole modus operandi of the Growing Forward initiative.